Hello, students. Today we are going to look at the story, The Singing Lesson, which is written by Catherine Mansfield, and it is there in the syllabus of class 12th ISC. Before we move on to the story, let's look at the storyline. The storyline tells us that there was a teacher, Miss Meadows, who used to teach singing to the girls in a girls' school. And this story refers to a day when Miss Meadows was passing through a feeling of deep anguish, a deep pain inside her, as her fiance Basil had written her a letter that he was not a marrying man and their marriage would be a mistake. This had hurt her deeply from inside, due to which, when she reached the school, so she was not in a good mood, and the girls, they were very much excited that Miss Meadows is going to teach them some good song. There was a girl among them, and that girl was Mary Breesley. She used to give her, as a custom, she always used to give her a chrysanthemum flower, and Miss Meadows used to take it very happily. But that day she ignored it. So this had hurt Mary Breesley also. Miss Meadows could not separate her professional life from her emotional life. Whatever emotions were going inside her was reflected in her behavior and in her you can say the choice of song that she had taken for the girls. She asked them to open at a song, a lament, at page 14, and they had to sing that song, but she ordered them not to show any expressions, so that this means that it was just like a lifeless type of song. And the girls, they were singing in a very slow voice because the song was having a sob, a sigh, a deep anguish, which was actually obviously the feelings of Miss Meadows. She didn't want to tell anything about herself, what she was feeling from inside, but the song was reflecting her bad mood. And later on, then she forced the girls to sing in such a way that some expressions should be there. Again, she was thinking about her fiance, that what had made him write this letter. She remembered the day when he had proposed in front of her that he was fond of her. And so she was very happy that she would soon get married to Basil. But what had made Basil write that letter that he is not a marrying man and their marriage would be a mistake? So while the girls were practicing with the song, she was thinking about her personal life. Later, she was also thinking that now she will have to leave her job and she will have to go somewhere else in order to hide her shame, as she had declared in the school before that she was going to get married. Now, when she was thinking all these things, then she got a message from the principal's office. Miss Vyat had called her. She had handed her a telegram, and that telegram was from her fiancé, Basil, who had written that the letter he had written was a mistake, and he had bought a hat stand. This made her so much happy that now she is going to get married to Basil. And with happiness, she again returned back and asked the girls to turn the page to a happy song. And she herself started singing with a loud voice, reflecting her happiness. So this story tells us that how the mood of a teacher changes and how she is reflecting her feelings of personal life in her professional life. This teaches also a lesson that the professional life should be kept separate from the personal life of anybody. The personal life is personal life. It should not have any effect on the people with whom you are attached in your professional life. So now the title also is very apt, because the singing lesson is representing the mood of that teacher throughout the story. Initially, she was not happy because of the letter she got from her fiance that he is not a marrying man and their marriage would be a mistake. But later, when she gets a letter from the fiance again, that the letter, forget that letter, and that I have got a hat stand. So this shows that how she was reflecting her mood in the girls also who were going to learn music from her. Because initially, when she was in a bad mood, she asked the girls to open a lament song, and she ordered the students to sing first of all in expressionless way. When they started singing in a slow voice, she again ordered them, no, they should show some expressions in that song, and so on. But when she got the telegram about the marriage, that yes, it was his mistake that he had written that letter and forget that letter, she was happy, and then she again ordered the girls to open a page number having a happy song. So this singing lesson itself is a story reflecting the mood of that teacher, in which her personal life and her professional life both are intermingled together. Now let's look at the story. With despair, cold, sharp despair, buried deep in her heart like a wicked knife, Miss Meadows, in cap and gown and carrying a little baton, trod the cold corridors that led to the music hall. Girls of all ages, rosy from the air and bubbling over with gleeful excitement that comes from running to school on a fine autumn morning, hurried, skipped, fluttered by. From the hollow classrooms came a quick drumming of voices. A bell rang. A voice like a bird cried Muriel. And then there came from the staircase a tremendous knock, knock, knocking. Someone had dropped her dumbbells. So here we are told that the entire scene of the school, that Miss Meadows, first of all, we are introduced to the protagonist of the story, Miss Meadows. She had a despair means a feeling of having no hope. Though she was hopeless in herself, and that was deeply buried inside her heart. With that heavy heart, she was walking and crossing the corridors of the school. It was an autumn morning, and she had a baton. A baton means a stick through which she would be like giving the command to play the music. She was crossing the cold corridors and then entering into the music room. So girls of all the ages, small and big, of all the classes, they were trying to move towards the music hall. They were rosy from air means they were, you can say, just running from their classrooms into the music hall. And due to that running, their cheeks became rosy. They had a very great excitement. They were quite excited to learn the music. They all of them were hurrying, skipping. Some of them were sliding or skipping, and some of them fluttered by. They were just a quick in movement. You can say a hustle and a bustle. And then a bell rang. A voice like a bird cried Muriel. And then from the staircase, some knock, knock, knock. That means some girl had dropped her dumbbell. That falling of the dumbbell was heard. The science mistress stopped Miss Meadows. Now here, as Miss Meadows was passing through the corridor, the science teacher, she stopped Miss Meadows. Good morning, she said in her sweet, affected drawl. Isn't it cold? It might be winter. She wished Miss Meadows and said that, don't you think it's very cold and soon winter is going to come? Miss Meadows, hugging the knife, stared in hatred at the science mistress. Everything about her was sweet, pale like honey. You would not have been surprised to see a bee caught in the tangles of that yellow hair. Now, Miss Meadows, she was having that knife, the knife of grief, stuck in her heart. She stood there, but with hatred. She saw the science mistress. The science mistress was looking very sweet, and it seemed everything was sweet around her. The atmosphere around the science teacher was quite sweet. It seemed as if a honey bee could be caught in her yellow hair, which were tied up. Is it rather sharp? Said Miss Meadows grimly. The other smiled her sugary smile. Miss Meadows says, yes, it is a sharp wind. And that too she answered, you can say, in a very sharp voice. The science teacher, she gave a smile. You look frozen, said she. Her blue eyes opened wide. There came a mocking light in them. Had she noticed anything? Now, the science teacher said that you look very frozen. That means you look very dull in your appearance. Saying this, she was looking with her, you can say, keen eyes. And it seemed as if her eyes were mocking. And Miss Meadows was afraid, had she seen something in me? Oh, not quite as bad that, said Miss Meadows, and she gave the science mistress, in exchange for a smile, a quick grimace and passed on. Now, Miss Meadows didn't want to answer anything. She said that, no, I'm not that in a bad mood, or I'm not that much frozen. Saying this, she gave a, you can say, you can sharp uh, eyes on her, a sharp look on her, and then she passed on. She didn't want to talk too much to the science teacher. Forms 4, 5, and 6 were assembled in the music hall. The noise was deafening. Now, children of 4th, 5th, and 6th, they all had gathered up in the music hall, and the noise was little by little getting diminished. On the platform by the piano stood Mary Beasley, Miss Meadows' favorite, who played accompaniments. She was turning the music stool. When she saw Miss Meadows, she gave a loud warning, "Shh, girls." And Miss Meadows, her hands thrust in her sleeves, the baton under her arm, strode down the center aisle, mounted the steps, turned sharply, seized the brass music stand, planted it in front of her, and gave two sharp taps with her baton for silence. Now, here in the classroom, on the platform, Mary Beasley was a favorite student of Miss Meadows. She was standing on that platform and she was arranging everything. She kept the music stool in such a way that Miss Meadows could sit on that. Now, when she saw Miss Meadows was coming to the hall, she gave a silence. She told this to all the girls. And Miss Meadows, she had the baton in her hand. She came, she rose to the platform, she sat on the stool, and then she moved the music brass stand towards herself. And with the help of baton, she tapped on it and said, "Silence, everybody. Silence, please," immediately. And looking at nobody, her glance swept over that sea of colored flannel blouses with bobbing pink faces and hands, quivering butterfly hair bows, and music books outspread. Now, Miss Miro, she didn't look at anybody because she was not in a good mood. She said, "Silence, everybody." But her eyes had fallen on the flannel blouses of the students, and all of them had pink faces. They were having a quivering butterfly hair bows. Everybody was tying hair bows on their hairs. And everybody was having the music books open in front of them. She knew perfectly well what they were thinking. Meaty is in a wax. Well, let them think it. Her eyelids quivered. She tossed her head, defying them. What could the thoughts of these creatures matter to someone who stood there bleeding to death? pierced to the heart and to the heart by such a letter. Now, Miss Meadows knew that the girls were thinking that maybe Miss Meadows is not in a good mood, and she knew that let them think whatever they want to think. Her eyelids were quivering; they were shaking a bit. Then she thought that what could the thoughts of such creatures matter her, because she herself was in a grief. Now she was there. It seemed as if she was bleeding to death because the grief of something had happened to her. That grief was pricking her inside little by little, and that was leading her to death. I feel more and more strongly that our marriage would be a mistake. Not that I do not love you. I love you as much as it is possible for me to love any woman. But truth to tell, I have come to the conclusion that I am not a married man. And the idea of settling down fills me with nothing but. And the word disgust was scratched out lightly and regret written over the top. Now she was remembering a letter that was sent to her by her fiance. That letter said that he felt more and more strongly that their marriage would be a mistake. It was not that he didn't love her, he loved her as much as he could love a woman. And the truth is that he had come to a conclusion that he is not a marriage material, he is not a married man. So he says that the idea of settling down with a woman and then having a family or a house fills him with something like he had written a word disgust, but then he cut it off and above it he had written a word regret. Basil Miss Meadows stalked over to the piano, and Mary Beasley, who was waiting for this moment, bent forward. Her curls fell over her cheeks while she breathed, "Good morning, Miss Meadows," and she motioned towards rather than handed to her mistress a beautiful yellow chrysanthemum. The little ritual of the flower had been gone through for ages and ages, quite a term and a half. It was as much part of the lesson as opening the piano, but this morning, instead of taking it up, instead of tucking it into her belt, while she leant over Mary and said, "Thank you, Mary, how very nice," turn to page 32. What was Mary's horror when Miss Meadows totally ignored the chrysanthemum, made no reply to her greeting, but said in a voice of ice, "Page 14, please, and mark the accents well." Now, here we are told that what is the mood of Miss Meadows. When Miss Meadows moved towards the piano, this was a moment when her favorite student Mary Beasley was waiting, because at this moment only she used to greet her and give her a yellow chrysanthemum flower. This was a ritual which had been uh, going on through ages. That means through so many years. This time also she offered her a yellow chrysanthemum, and generally whatever happened was that whenever she used to offer her a yellow chrysanthemum, Miss Meadows used to tuck it inside her belt and say, "How very nice of you, Mary." And this time nothing happened of such sort. When Mary Beasley had given her the flower, she ignored the flower totally, and she even did not look at her or talk to her. And she didn't even say that open to page 32. She immediately, with an ice cold voice, said, "Open to page 14 and mark the accents well." Staggering moment. Mary blushed until the tears stood in her eyes. But Miss Meadows was gone back to the music stand. Her voice rang through the music hall. Now, this was a very shaking moment for Mary. She became red in shame and tears stood in front of her eyes. And by this time, Miss Meadows had gone to the piano and she had gone to the music stand and then she had started singing with the girls. Page 14. We will begin with page 14, a lament. Now, girls, you ought to know if it by this time. We shall take it all together, not in parts, all together, and without expression. Sing it, though quite simply beating time with the left hand. Now, Miss Meadows had given the order that open to page 14, there is a song, A Lament. Open that. And this time you are not going to sing in parts, you will take it all together, and that too without any expression. And you have to sing it quite simply by, you can say, counting the time on your left hand. She raised the baton, she tapped the music stand twice. Down came Mary on the opening chord. Down came all those left hands beating the air, and in the chimed those young mournful voices. Now Miss Meadows had raised the baton. She tapped it on the music stand twice, and immediately the girls started singing. Mary came down to the opening chord, and she started, you can say, playing the chord, while the girls had started counting on their left hands. And in chimed those young mournful voices, and then the hall was echoing with the voices of those young girls which were singing the lament song. Now the song was fast, too fast fade the roses of pleasure. Soon autumn yields unto winter drear. Fleetly, fleetly, music's gay measure passes away from the listening ear. Good heavens, what could be more tragic than the lament? Every note was a sigh, a sob, a groan of awful mournfulness. Now, here, each and every word, each and every syllable of that song was pinpointing to a sob, a sigh, and a groan of mournfulness. A groan means a sound of mournfulness. So Miss Meadows had lifted her arms in the white gown and began conducting with both hands. I feel more and more strongly that our marriage would be a mistake. Miss Meadows had taken up both her hands and then she was like giving a command to the girls to sing in this way. But while she was giving the command in this way, she was having the thoughts of that letter that our marriage would be a mistake. She beat and the voices cried, fleetly, half fleetly. What could have possessed him to write such a letter? She was thinking that as the girls were practicing with the song, she thought that what had made this Basil write such type of letter? What could have led up to it? It came out of nothing. His last letter had been all about a fumed oak bookcase he had bought for our books. Before this letter of rejection came, before that, a letter had already been sent by Basil that he had bought a fumed oak bookcase and a natty little hall stand. And he had also bought a little hall stand. He had seen a very neat affair with a carved owl on a bracket holding 3 hat brushes in its claws. How she had smiled at that. The stand that he had bought had a carved owl on the bracket of it, and on its, you can say, claws, there were 3 hat brushes on which hats could be hung. How she had smiled at that, so like a man to think one needed 3 hat brushes. She at that time had smiled, and then she used to think that how like a man he is thinking that he needed 3 hat brushes. From listening ears sang the voices, but her ear, the teacher's ear, was listening to the song and her thoughts were towards Basil. Once again, said Miss Meadows, but this time in parts, still without expression. Now again Miss Meadows had given an order that repeat the song once again, but this time in parts and without more less expression. Fast are too fast with the gloom of the contraltos added, one could scarcely help shuddering. Fade the roses of pleasure, last time he had come to see her. Basil had worn a rose in his buttonhole. How handsome he had looked in that bright blue suit with that dark red rose, and he knew it too. He couldn't help knowing it. First he stroked his hair, then his moustache, his teeth gleamed when he smiled. Then she was remembering about her fiancé, that Last time when he had come to see her, though he had a rose in his buttonhole, and that too it was a blue suit in which he was dressed, and he looked handsome in that. And he himself knew that I am looking handsome, and so he stroked his hair, his mustache, and his teeth. They were shining when he smiled. The headmaster's wife keeps on asking me to dinner. It's a perfect nuisance. I never get an evening to myself in that place. Then he told the teacher, Miss Meadows, that the headmaster's wife always offers me to come to dinner, but I never get a time to move over there. But can't you refuse? Oh, well, it doesn't do for a man in my position to be unpopular. Now, Miss Meadows had asked him that why don't you refuse her? And he used to say that for a man of me, an honorable man of my type, it doesn't suit to become unpopular and refusing ladies in such a way. Music's gay measure wailed the voices. The willow trees outside the high, narrow windows waved in the wind. They had lost half their leaves, the tiny ones that clung wriggled like fishes caught on a line. I'm not a marrying man. The voices were silent, the piano waited. Now, what happened was the girls were singing that line, music's gay measure. After that, they stopped singing, and the piano also waited for some time. That what is the order of Miss Meadows now? In that meantime, she was looking that there was a willow tree outside the window in which most of the leaves had been shed off. Only small leaves were clinging to it. And she was getting a thought, I'm not a marrying man, of her fiance.